Hello and welcome. In case you didn't see my Yasuo guide, I'll reintroduce myself. My name is Seth. I have 137,655 Yone points. And I have a 37% win rate in Gold 3. So I figured, who better to give you a Yone guide than myself? So welcome to Yone, the Dead Brother. Starting off with his passive. Double Sword. Yone has two swords, a normal steel sword and an edgy sword. Yone alternates between swords after each attack, and his steel sword dealing physical damage and his edgy sword deals both physical and magic damage. He also has the 150% crit chance passive, meaning a Cloak of Agility gives 38% crit chance instead of the regular 15%. Cool passive, very edgy, 8 out of 10. Should have gotten 3 swords instead. Moving on to his Q. Stab. Yone stabs in a straight line, but here's the catch. If he hits something and he stabs again, a tornado is formed in his sword. Sound familiar? Well, almost. Instead of throwing the tornado out of his sword, he throws himself instead, knocking everyone up that gets hit. I like the twist where he throws himself out instead of some lame tornado. 9 out of 10, very original. His W, the trimmer. Yone trims the grass in the cone in front of him, dealing both physical and magical damage as he slices with his edgy sword. But if he hits an enemy while trimming, he gets a shield. If the enemy happens to be a champion, the shield size is doubled and 50% extra for each other champion hit after. I think it's very inclusive of them to make an ability that represents gardeners. 9 out of 10. Now one of his more iconic abilities, his E. The umbilical cord. Yone leaves his body. He moves faster and can move through minions for the duration. When in this state, Yone's attacks leave a mark on a person's forehead. This mark stores a portion of the damage he dealt to the enemy and repeats the damage once he goes back. If this mark starts flickering black and red, that means the target is already dead. Pressing E again will kill the target. Yone returns to his body after pressing E again. Or, after 5 seconds, Yone realizes he's not due yet and he returns back to his body where he will most likely be spawn camped by the entire enemy team. While he's traveling back to his body, he is immune to any form of CC until he's back home. Overall, a very cool ability and very fun to bait your teammates. 9 out of 10 because I keep failing to execute people with. Or I get spawn camped. You know what? It's an 8 out of 10. Last but not least, we have his ultimate. Broken hitbox right, please fix. Yone prepares a long windup that is super slow, after which Yone will blink forward, knocking up everyone that is relatively close to the rectangle drawn on the floor, hitting a good amount of damage, apparently first knocking everyone down, stunning them for 1 second, then a gust of wind follows them, knocking everyone up. But honestly, I didn't know the first part was a thing until I googled it, so just see it as a knockup. Amazing anime move, and the hitbox is completely broken, yet somehow I managed to miss people, so it's an 8 out of 10 for me. Now everyone's favorite part, the runes. If you watch the Yasuo guide, you can skip this part as you'll be using the same runes, but I'll go over them real quick. We start with Precision and we take Lethal Tempo. It makes us attack faster and reduces the cooldown of our Q, since it scales with attack speed. Second row we take Triumph because Presence of Mind is useless and there's no third option in this row as it's still work in progress.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine.
Next we take Legend Alacrity. More attack speed, more stabs. Could take Tenacity if they have an ungodly amount of CC on their team that are knockups. Last row we either take Last Stand or Coup de Grace. This choice is very tricky since it involves math. You go to your match history, then count all the deaths you have on Yone in the last 10 or so games, divide it by the amount of games you've played and you'll get a number. If the number is above 4, you should probably run Last Stand. As for the second part of the tree, we take Resolve, simply because we try to keep the average deaths per game to 10 or lower. Resolve does this perfectly because it gives us the things like Bone Plating, which will be your first choice here. Not a whole lot to debate since it's just really good and makes it so you don't have to recall after every wave when playing as ranged or assassins. The second option will either be Revitalize or Unflinching depending if they have a lot of CC or not. As for the minor rune, attack speed, adaptive force and armor magic resist depending on matchup, or if you're feeling really spicy, you can take some HP. Items. The place where we spend our hard-earned cash to buy bows on characters that use swords. Speaking of swords, we want to start with Doran's Blade most of the time. Good item, gives HP and some damage. You could opt in for Doran's Shield if they have a lot of poke, but most of the time you're gonna run Doran's Blade with a potion. While we're still on the topic of swords, if you have the money, we would like to get Berserker Greaves as our first back. It's a very cheap 1100 gold and it gives us amazing stats. A bunch of attack speed to lower the cooldown on the Q, we walk fast, which is also very exciting, and it's just overall a very good item to get early. For our mythic, Shield Bow is pretty much the go-to item. There's a survivability, attack speed, lifesteal and crit. And if you remember, our passive more than doubles its crit, making this a very solid item because it makes us survive longer. As for our third item, people either go Mortal Reminder or Infinity Edge. This is many factors, like how much healing they have, how far ahead you are, did or did you not do your taxes for this month, and many more. But for this video, let's just buy a Mortal Reminder. It gives a chunky amount of attack speed, crit, and more movement speed. Infinity Edge is good if you're rich or know that you're the alpha in the game and you're gonna carry it. Even if you take a Mortal Reminder route, you'll most likely get Infinity Edge right after anyway, giving us only 2 more items to work with. First of which is most likely Death Dance. Item is super strong, because it makes it so you can't get one shot. And you get healed on kills, on top of having defensive stats and offensive stats. Good item, buy it. And if the game somehow managed to last long enough for you to buy a last item, get a Guardian's Angel because respawn times at this point are probably over 60 seconds and you don't want to look at the grey screen all the time. Runes and items done, moving on to gameplay. And more often than not, you start playing the game when the game just started. The early game. When you first start playing Yone, you might realize that it feels very clunky to play at the beginning, which is true, but it will get better when you get some attack speed items. But your goal in the early game is quite simple: kill minions and champions. Yone's early game is not bad, since you can dish out a lot of damage early with your E and third Q combo. Getting in some free attacks when they're knocked up, you can either return to your shirtless body or continue beating them up for a bit, since you do have a stacked lethal tempo at this point, at least most of the time. Do be careful when pushing lanes because of the evil swamp dwellers. Mid-game, the exciting part of the game, where your champion starts to feel a little less sluggish and more fluid. This is also the time you can embarrass yourself, not only to your mid laner now, but to both teams by completely whiffing your ult, or going in with your E and dying to CC. But if you want none of the team fights, go to the side lane because Yone is quite strong in the mid game. And if you land your abilities, you can win most matchups at this point. Because of the magic damage Yone deals, he's also quite decent at dealing with tanks, because they would most likely have built armor late game. Your game lasted too long, here you are. You're still strong, but most people have caught up to you in power, meaning it will be a bit harder to deal with tanks or assassins that one-shot you. But all it takes is one good ultimate to win the game, just one. This is the moment you've played this champion for. This is the moment you've struggled all this time to pull off the most amazing 5-man knockup with your ultimate to win the game. But then you whiff your ult and lose the game. Your team reports you for griefing the game. Out of sadness, you uninstall the game, pledging to never play it again, only to pick the game back up in an hour and repeat the cycle. Thank you for watching, and I hope you learned something useful. Hey, you click that subscribe button if you enjoyed the content and want to see more. While you're at it, let me know in the comments what champ you would like to see next. Thank you!